Welcome to Expedition Networking, a special segment of the Networking RX podcast. I'm Frank Agan, founder and president of AmSpirit Business Connections, and your host for this program. For those of you who are familiar, on the Networking RX podcast, we share information and have conversations with experts, such as authors, researchers, and social scientists. And all of these programs are aimed at helping you learn how to become better at building professional relationships and understanding why they work. In this Expedition Networking segment, however, we're going to bring on successful entrepreneurs and unique professionals and explore their networking adventure and learn how they used relationships to create lasting success. Today on Expedition Networking, we have Desiree Lancaster. She is a financial empowerment coach, and what that means is that she helps her small business professional clients put the power back in their hands to not just profit from their field of endeavor, but also build that profit into long-term wealth. Desiree, welcome to the program.
Thank you so much for having me, Frank.
All right, give us the story here. How did you get into this?
Absolutely. A little bit about me and my back history is I worked for government. I worked for local government for 15 years. I worked in the fire department and I served 4 different fire chiefs as an executive assistant. The last fire chief I worked for, we just didn't see eye to eye. And because of that, it actually opened up a new door for me, a new pathway in my career within the city of where I was working. And when that door opened up, it led me into running my own division within the fire department and then eventually running into the entire city. So I went from being an executive assistant to running the revenue cycle management part of the fire department. I made sure that the fire department collected all of their money, and I'm always looking for new ways to expand and broaden my reach and learn more. So through that, I started asking a lot more questions, and because of that, it allowed me to then take charge of the entire collections division for the entire city. And then in addition to that, I was then placed in the treasury division. So I started working with the treasurer for the city of where I was working. And through that, it opened up a whole new door of financial opportunity, financial understanding. In addition to that, I was also working with the pension department as well. And so I went to many different pension courses. I started learning about how the different contracts work within government, like when it comes to police and fire and as well as civil service. How are people really truly maximizing their financial future? And it started becoming very interesting to me. And my job of working in the collections arena became less interesting to me. And because of that, it just started making more sense to really start immersing myself in what financial future really meant. And it's serendipity or serendipitous. My husband had met our mentor, Brian Daly, about a year prior to that. And my husband started working with him in the background, really immersing himself into the financial world. When it comes to retirement plans, personal pensions, index universal life, 401ks, IRAs, Roths, you name it. We started really learning about it. My husband fell in love with it. And he's like, Des, you need to start doing this with me. And it kind of just went hand in hand with what I was then doing in the city, in the government of where I was working. It just started to really become clear of what I needed to be doing or where I should be going. And 1 year ago, exactly February 18th of 2020, I quit my job. That was my last day working for the city. And I started working full time really immersing myself into this arena. And through that, it has led me here. I am now helping people change what their financial future could look like, really maximizing their money, tax-free, risk-free, tax torpedo, long-term care, really maximizing even Social Security benefits. You name it, that's what we are doing. We are really just changing the mindset of the typical normal ways of that people were thinking about saving for the future. And that's how I got here.
So were you a numbers person before this, or?
No, I hate numbers.
Okay.
I in fact got my degree in a degree that required zero math. I ended up just falling in love with it.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Interesting. Yeah, I mean, I think it's fascinating how we think we're going to be heading down a certain path in life, and then we end up not going down that path for whatever reason. I think that's one of the. I don't think there's anything wrong with college. I think the problem with college is that we try and force people into a path when they're 18 years old, and nobody knows.
Nobody knows. I mean, here I am. I'm 40 years old and I still don't know what I want to do when I grow up. This is something I'm passionate about right now. In 10 years, I could be passionate about something completely different. And and speaking of college, I love to talk to parents about, is college savings plans the best option? Because
Right.
What if your kid doesn't want to go to college? Then what? To really just stop doing what everybody else tells you to do and really get educated yourself. And that's what I did. And it just became so fascinating to me that I needed to learn more.
Well, I think the world has gotten more complicated. It just has. And there weren't college savings vehicles years ago. There have been mutual funds and things like that. But I mean, there's so much out there, and I think because there's so much out there, people become confused, and a confused mind says no, or they'll make mistakes.
Or they're paralyzed in, like you said, in fear, or lack of understanding. And then they end up doing absolutely nothing. And when they have to do absolutely nothing, then you come to retirement age or whatever it may be. And then you realize, oh my gosh, now what? Now what do I do? How am I going to live? How am I going to actually retire? Because the poverty in senior citizens right now, it's astronomical. It's very sad to see where our senior citizens are at right now. And if we don't change our youth and the way that people are thinking now, using that regular mindset of just because your employer offers it doesn't mean it's the best solution for you. You're basically making the government your primary beneficiary to your plan.
Yeah.
And then you end up with nothing. We're working at, not to say it's a bad thing, it could be a social thing, but sometimes the elderly end up having to work a job into like their late 80s, early 90s because of just poor decisions in their youth.
Yeah.
And it has no fault of their own. It's just all based on misinformation or not enough information, I think, I should say.
Well, I always say that the difference between the haves and the have-nots, and I'm not talking about super wealthy, I'm not talking about 1%ers, I'm talking about just people who live a comfortable lifestyle and are able to kind of roll into retirement and enjoy it. and, not have to worry about clipping coupons. And that the difference between those is just a little bit of information. When I started working in my professional life, I grew up, my father was a professor. He has a pension. It has served him well, but we never had conversations sitting around the table about finances. So I go off and I'm working. I've had a law degree, got an MBA. I'm off working. I'm saving money. I'm putting it in a savings account. I think I am doing well. And then I was talking to people at work and they were telling me about this 401k thing. I'm like, what are you talking about? Here I am. I've got a law degree. I've got an MBA. I almost have a CPA and I don't really even know what these things are. And fortunately I was, they kind of put me under their wings and kind of taught me all these things, which was great. But I kind of shuddered to think where I would be if I didn't have that. I mean, it was disciplined at saving, but as you know, just saving is not enough. It's, inflation's going to eat it alive otherwise.
Absolutely. And the other thing is that, the 401k is a great vehicle. IRA is a great vehicle. There's just like a cell phone, you go buy a cell phone 20 years ago, you're not going to still use that same cell phone today. Since the 401 was created, since then, there's been so many revolutionary changes in this environment, in this world, that is really changing the way people think about saving and maximizing their returns, fighting themselves, or I should say, protecting themselves from risk. Some people are risk takers, some people are not risk takers. I myself am not. I like to know that my money is going to be there when I need it and when I want it. And I don't want to have stipulations on using my money. Some people are more risk taking. They want to really, truly diversify. And when they diversify, they want to be risky, a very high risk in some accounts and very low risk or even risk free. And that's my job, is to make sure that they understand every option, every opportunity, and based on their goals, not my goals, but their goals. Like, what is your plan? Like, what do you want? What are you looking for? Do you want a retirement? Do you want a way to have another investment vehicle to really truly maximize those investments and have that money start working for you in a greater scale? Or are you just looking, just to get by and make sure that you just have enough to offset Social Security, if Social Security is still around when some people retire? And it's becoming fun for me, having these conversations and hearing what people's goals are, and it brings more love and passion to what I do. And I learn from people that I talk to, or like they'll ask me certain questions about certain plans or different opportunities, and there's some things I've never even heard of. I'm like, now I get to dive a little bit deeper into a different area, a different arena, to really make sure that my portfolio for helping people is as broad as it needs to be, to make sure that I am doing the best job that I can do for my clients. Yeah.
What'd you want to do when you were growing up? What was it wasn't this, obviously. It wasn't working for the city, but it was something.
I wanted to be a teacher.
Okay.
I wanted to be a teacher for the longest time.
And you are.
I am essentially like a teacher.
No, you are. I mean, you definitely are. It's just something they don't teach in school, sadly.
That's a good point. And to that point, I even called the local school board here in my county, because I have 3 kids in the Palm Beach County School District. And I asked the question, like, why aren't you teaching financial education? And their response was, we are.
Yeah.
And I'm still wondering where it is, because I haven't seen it. My children are not instilled with it. So
I remember, I know some of this is dated, but I remember when I was in high school, it was called economics. You learned how to write a check, which I don't write checks
obsolete now.
Pretty much. I mean, I still write a few, but then it was like that was the thing. Learn when should you buy large eggs versus extra large eggs, kind of a thing. Just little questions like that. It's and those are okay. Those are kind of basic skills, but in my mind, that's kind of like you never talked about investments, never talked about the things that really mattered. But I would say you are a teacher, so you've kind of defaulted to what you always wanted to do.
Just not with young children. And I'll tell you the reason why I changed course very quickly. So I wanted to be a teacher from first grade until I was about like 16 years old. When I was 16, I got a job working for a summer camp. And I had a group of kids with the grade that I wanted to teach. That was the moment I go, nope, I do not want to teach young kids anymore. Yeah. That's not for me. I still love to teach, and I love to train, and I love to be able to connect with people. And when I see the light bulbs go off in their heads, like that gives me so much joy that I've learned throughout my life. Like, how can I truly do that without teaching young children? Because that's just not where my strong suit is.
Right.
And even when I worked for the city, like one of my main jobs was to make sure that if we roll out a new software, they contacted me and said, hey, Des, like you need to learn this software inside and out so that you can go and train people. And I did that because it was fun for me. I enjoyed it. I loved learning the new software. I love to see the joy on their face of understanding. And now that I'm doing this, like you said, I'm still teaching and I'm still playing into that. It's just in a different arena, a different platform, with much older people.
Well, and I think the other thing is the clients who come to you serious. They want to learn. They're not, Absolutely. It's not, hey, okay, mom and dad are sending me here. It's like they want to be there with you. And that's probably what makes it fun. So
for sure.
Yeah.
And it's exciting to me, to, like I said, still see those light bulbs go off, because I don't take the normal financial advisor approach. I don't speak in that lingo. I speak in layman's terms. I want you to understand what I'm saying and truly be able to comprehend. So like if you look at an illustration or you look at your portfolio, you're not going, I don't understand any of this. I want you to walk away going, okay, I know I made the right decision. I understand what I'm looking at. I understand what I'm reading. I understand what I've just committed to. And that is where I think I differ, and why my clients they love working with me and I love working with them, is because of that understanding and really not walking away from them until they feel 100% comfortable and at ease, knowing that they understand and that they understand that they made a really powerful decision for themselves.
Right. Now, if you could go back in time and have lunch with young Desiree, what advice would you give her?
Oh my gosh. I would give her the advice, number one, to jump sooner into yourself, into your passion, into your power. And because I really feel like I worked too long for other people. And I really feel like there was a lot of I could have really, truly built myself up into who I am today, better, faster, stronger, and also start funding an account much younger
Yeah.
as well. I mean, even though I am fully vested with a pension through local government, it's just not enough.
No.
And if I would have known what I know today, I would definitely tell her, jump sooner and start today.
Well, you're going to see it in your kids, because I see it in my kids. My wife and I, we talk money all the time, and we're not brooding over money. Oh, stop spending or anything like that. But just, hey, let's be sensible. Does this make sense? If we buy a new car or a used car, what do we do? Have these conversations. And I see my kids. I don't want to say it's staggering. They're doing well, right? They're doing well. And that gives me a real sense of relief to know that I shouldn't say never have to worry about them, because you always worry about your kids, right?
Sure.
But financially, I know they're going to be making smart decisions. They get it. And
Yeah, absolutely. And that's where I sit too, because we do have plans for children, and the financial burden that,
right.
like you said, not ever having to worry about them in that aspect. I don't have to worry. They're set up for life. And it's up to them to continue it on, of course, like, because I'm not going to fund a plan for them for their entire lives. However, it's giving them an upper hand to really, truly change. If they're not going to live the way that I lived, and they're not going to have to learn the hard way like I had to learn. They're gonna have money and an account for them. Like when I went to go buy my first house, it's like, oh my gosh, how am I supposed to buy my first house? How am I going to do this? What am I going to do? And with them, they could be 20 years old and they're going to have enough money in an account to go put a down payment or even buy a house outright if they truly wanted to.
Yeah.
With tax-free money, it's just changing that mindset of what is possible and is it possible.
Well, let's switch gears a little bit here with the last few minutes and talk about your practice, you and your husband, things you do, how people can get a hold of you. So floor is yours.
Awesome. So you can find me on Facebook, Desiree Lancaster or Lancaster Holistic Solutions. I'm also on LinkedIn if you just type in Desiree Lancaster, I'll pop right up. My website is www.lholistics.com. And my phone number, I am accessible you can call me, you can text me, I don't really care. 561-716-7273. And you can always shoot me an email as well at vestedgrace@gmail.com.
Okay. Well, I appreciate your time today.
Thank you. I really appreciate being on here and that you even asked. So absolutely.
To wrap things up, remember, we're looking for some enterprising business types to join our team as franchisees of AmSpirit Business Connections. Our franchisees work with entrepreneurs, sales representatives, and professionals in their area to help them become more successful through networking and the exchange of quality business referrals in a structured weekly morning meeting. This is a unique franchise opportunity, you see, because these meetings are in the morning. A successful business type or professional can add this franchise opportunity onto what they're already doing. Again, all of our franchisees do something else. For a couple hours in the morning, a few mornings a week, these franchisees work the AmSpirit Business Connections model. The rest of the time, they're attorneys, accountants, realtors, coaches, and consultants of various kinds. The wonderful thing is that not only do our franchisees realize a financial gain from operating the AmSpirit Business Connections model, but the business networks that they build and develop become a great source of referrals for their primary business as well. Perhaps you know someone, perhaps you are that someone. Whatever the case, to learn more about the AmSpirit Business Connections franchise opportunity, please contact me using the email in the show notes or the one we provide at the end of this program.
Thanks for joining us on the Networking RX podcast. Please put what you've learned into action today and let us know if you have questions, comments, or ideas for future topics. You can email them to us at podcast@amspirit.com. That's AmSpirit.com. Finally, so you never miss an episode, be sure to subscribe to the Networking RX podcast through iTunes, Overcast, or however you receive your podcasts. Now get out and network with someone.
The Networking RX podcast is the copyright production of AmSpirit Business Connection. All rights reserved.